Once upon a time in a glittering city where the lights never slept and the streets were always busy with ambition, there lived a man who seemed to have it all. He was a powerful CEO, a man whose name carried weight in business circles, a man who had built an empire through hard work, sleepless nights, and an unwavering determination. But behind the tailored suits and the confident smile was a single father who carried a heart that still bore scars. He had everything that money could buy: cars, homes, influence. But what he lacked was something that couldn't be purchased, something he had quietly longed for: love. For years, his world revolved around his little daughter, a bright, cheerful girl who was the sunshine of his life. She was the reason he woke up every morning with a purpose beyond boardrooms and balance sheets. But even as she grew, she too noticed the quiet loneliness in her father's eyes. Friends of his, knowing his reluctance to open up, finally convinced him to go on a blind date. It wasn't for himself, he told them, but for the sake of companionship, for trying to move forward. He didn't expect anything more than polite conversation over dinner. He certainly didn't expect magic. That night, in a quiet and elegant restaurant, he sat across from a woman who was nothing like the women he had met before. She wasn't dressed in designer clothes, nor did she carry herself with the air of someone chasing wealth or status. She was simple, her smile genuine, her voice soft yet confident. She was a poor girl, as society would label her, but the richness of her spirit could not be ignored. She had a strength in her eyes, the kind of strength that came not from privilege but from struggle, from knowing how to live with little and still smile like she had everything. From the very first moment their eyes met, he felt something stir in his heart, something he had long thought was buried. Their conversation flowed easily, laughter mixing with stories of life's challenges and small victories. She didn't care about his position as CEO. She didn't even seem impressed by it. Instead, she asked about his daughter, about his passions, about the man behind the titles. For the first time in years, he felt truly seen, not as a wealthy businessman, but as a human being. His daughter, sitting by his side at the table, instantly took a liking to her. The little girl pointed at the woman, giggling and curious, sensing the warmth she radiated. Children have a way of seeing the truth before adults do, and in her innocent eyes, she already knew her father had found someone special. The CEO found himself smiling in ways he hadn't in a long time. He realized he wasn't just enjoying the evening, he was feeling alive again. He hadn't expected to fall in love, especially not with someone society would consider beneath him, someone poor, someone with no name to carry into his empire. Yet the heart does not care for social labels, wealth, or status. The heart sees what it wants, and his heart saw her. Days turned into weeks, and what began as a blind date arranged by a friend became something far more meaningful. He admired her simplicity, the way she could find joy in little things, the way she listened with genuine care, and how she wasn't afraid to speak the truth. She, in turn, admired his devotion as a father, his quiet kindness that the world never saw, and his willingness to be vulnerable with her. Their love story wasn't without challenges. Many questioned his choice, whispering behind his back that a powerful man like him should never fall for a woman without wealth, without connections, without pedigree. Some accused her of chasing his money, not knowing that she had refused his gifts more than once, proving that her love was for him, not his empire. Through it all, he stood firm. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about reputation, deals, or expectations. He was thinking about happiness. He was thinking about the family he could build not just with his daughter, but with this woman who had taught him to feel again. One evening, as the three of them sat together, his daughter nestled comfortably in the woman's lap. He realized that this was what he had been searching for all along. Not another business victory, not another luxury car, not another headline praising his achievements, but the quiet warmth of love, the laughter of a child, the comfort of a home built on trust and affection. And so, the story of a single dad CEO who went on a blind date for a friend became the story of a man who rediscovered his heart. He fell in love at first sight, not because of wealth or glamour, but because he recognized in her the kind of beauty that cannot be bought, the beauty of a pure heart. His empire may have been built with steel and glass, but his true kingdom was built that night in a small restaurant, with a poor girl's smile and a little girl's laughter. And as they walked forward into the future, hand in hand, the world around them finally understood. Sometimes the greatest love stories are written not in boardrooms or contracts, but in the unexpected moments where two hearts from different worlds simply choose each other. A single dad who had conquered the world of business, who carried the title of CEO with pride and responsibility, never thought love would knock on his door again, let alone in the most unexpected way. His life was structured, disciplined, and focused on two things only: running his empire and raising his daughter, the little girl who was his entire world. He wore his success like armor, hiding behind wealth, luxury, and authority, but inside there was a quiet loneliness that no one saw. For years he told himself he was fine, that love was a distraction, that all he needed was his daughter's smile to keep going. But fate has a way of surprising those who least expect it. When a close friend suggested he go on a blind date, he resisted, laughed it off, even dismissed it as something beneath him. But eventually he agreed, not because he wanted love, but because he wanted to prove to his friends and perhaps to himself that he could still try. He walked into the restaurant that evening expecting nothing more than a polite exchange, maybe a dinner that would soon be forgotten. What he didn't know was that destiny had already prepared a new chapter of his life. Sitting across the table was a young woman, simple in appearance yet glowing with a quiet beauty that came not from riches but from sincerity. She was not wealthy, not adorned in jewels or designer clothes. She was a poor girl by society's standards, but her eyes held strength, compassion, and a light that wealth could never buy. From the moment he saw her, something inside him shifted. Their conversation began with casual words, but quickly turned into something deeper. She did not ask about his wealth, his business, or his status. She asked about him, his passions, his dreams, his daughter. She listened with genuine interest, and in her presence he felt something he had long forgotten. The freedom to simply be himself, not a CEO, not a powerful man, but a human being who longed for connection. His little daughter, seated beside him, was watching everything with innocent eyes. She pointed at the woman with a smile, giggling in the way children do when they sense warmth and kindness. To her, it wasn't about who the woman was or where she came from. It was about how she made her feel safe and happy. And in that moment, he saw through his daughter's eyes and realized that love often reveals itself through the purest of instincts. That evening stretched on like a dream. He laughed, truly laughed, in a way he hadn't for years. The heaviness of boardrooms and business meetings seemed to dissolve in her presence. He saw the courage in her simplicity, the resilience in her modesty, and the beauty in her humility. When the dinner ended, he felt a quiet ache, the kind of ache that told him he didn't want this night to be the last. Days turned into weeks, and their meetings became more frequent. They walked through parks with his daughter holding both their hands. They shared meals not in luxury restaurants, but in small, cozy places where conversation mattered more than the menu. He began to admire how she lived her life, how she found happiness in small things, how she never once looked at him for what he could give her, but rather for who he was when he was with her. She admired him not for his money, but for his devotion as a father, for the way his eyes softened when he looked at his daughter, for the way he longed for a home filled with more than just material success. But as with every love story that defies the expectations of society, whispers soon began. People around him questioned his choices. They told him that as a CEO, as a man of status, he should never settle for someone poor, someone with no name, no influence, no power. They said she would never fit into his world, that she was beneath him, that she must only want his wealth. Yet through it all, she never once clung to his riches, never once demanded luxuries. She stood by her values, proving with every moment that her love was pure. And through it all, he stood firm, refusing to let others dictate the path of his heart. He had spent years building skyscrapers of steel and glass, but he had realized those walls could never give him what this one woman and his little girl gave him, a home. One evening, as the city lights sparkled outside his window, He watched his daughter nestled in the woman's arms, laughing and playing with the innocence only children have. He realized that his empire, vast as it was, meant nothing compared to this simple, beautiful scene. His daughter had found in her a motherly warmth, and he had found in her the love he thought was gone forever. At that moment, he knew he had made the right choice. He no longer cared for the murmurs of society, for the judgments of those who measured love by wealth. He cared only for the happiness before him, and so the story of a single dad CEO who went on a blind date as a favor to a friend became something far greater. It became the story of a man who fell in love at first sight, not with riches or beauty defined by society, but with the purity of a heart that saw him for who he truly was. In her simplicity, he found peace. In her laughter, he found hope. In her love, he found the home he had been searching for. And as they built their lives together, hand in hand, with his daughter always by their side, they proved to the world that sometimes love doesn't follow the rules of wealth, status, or expectation. Sometimes love is simply about two hearts from different worlds choosing each other, and in that choice, finding everything they had ever been missing.